Ram pulled off something strange in the truck world. They built one of the nicest half-ton pickups you can sit in, and somehow they still carry one of the ugliest reputations in the parking lot. A Ram 1500 can make a Silverado feel plain and an F-150 feel busy. The seats are comfortable, the cabin is quiet, the ride is smooth, the interior looks expensive. And for years, Ram understood something the other brands were slower to admit. Truck owners did not want to feel like they were driving a workbench anymore. But then, the jokes start. Transmission jokes, electrical jokes, hemi-tick jokes, rear window leak jokes, air suspension jokes, the kind of jokes that follow a brand so long they become part of the ownership experience. That is the weird Ram story. The truck feels premium enough to win people over in 5 minutes, but the reputation makes some buyers nervous before they even touch the door handle. The first reason Ram became the nice truck is ride quality. When Ram moved to coil spring rear suspension on the 1500, it changed how people judged half-ton pickups. Chevy and Ford owners could brag about payload and toughness, but Ram owners had a simple comeback: go drive one. Empty ride quality mattered because plenty of truck owners spend more time commuting than hauling gravel. Ram figured that out early. A truck that rides better empty feels better every day. It feels less jumpy over broken pavement. It feels calmer on long trips. It feels more like a vehicle you can use with family, not just a machine you tolerate until the weekend project starts. That one decision helped Ram build a personality around comfort. The second reason is interior design. Ram did not just add leather and call it luxury. The brand made cabins that felt warm, simple, and expensive in a very American way. Big center screens, smart storage, good seats, physical controls where they still mattered, and higher trims that actually felt different from work trucks. A Laramie, Limited, or Longhorn could make buyers wonder why they were paying luxury SUV money for something without a bed. That interior advantage changed the conversation. People who had always bought Chevy or Ford would climb into a Ram and say the thing their friends did not want to hear: this feels better. But comfort does not erase history. Ram's reputation did not come from nowhere. Older Dodge trucks had real issues with front ends, dashboards cracking, rust, transmissions, electrical problems, and build quality complaints. Some of those stereotypes stuck even when the trucks improved. Once a brand becomes the punchline, it has to work twice as hard to change the room. Then there is the Hemi. The 5.7-litre Hemi is one of the biggest reasons people love Ram, and one of the biggest reasons people talk trash about Ram. When it runs right, it sounds good, pulls hard, and gives the truck a personality the turbo engines cannot quite copy. But owners also know the other side: broken exhaust manifold bolts, lifter noise, cam wear on neglected engines, and that famous tick everyone argues about. Some hemi-tick is harmless exhaust noise. Some of it is lifter trouble starting to write a very expensive story. That uncertainty is what hurts the reputation. A buyer hears one Ram idle in a parking lot, and suddenly every joke they ever heard comes back. The air suspension made the reputation more complicated. On paper, Ram's 4-corner air suspension is exactly the kind of feature that makes the truck feel upscale. It can level loads, lower for entry, raise for clearance, and help the truck ride beautifully. In warm climates and under warranty, owners often love it. But in cold weather or high mileage, air leaks, compressors, sensors, and frozen moisture can turn luxury into a repair estimate. That is the Ram pattern in one system. Great when it works, expensive when it does not. Quick pause before we get into why the reputation stuck so hard. The channel data keeps showing that over 80% of the people watching these truck videos are not subscribed. If you are still here, you are obviously the kind of buyer who wants the truth behind the badge before spending real money. Hit subscribe so the next Ram, Silverado, or Sierra breakdown actually shows up when it can save you from a bad decision. The reputation also sticks because Ram owners are unusually defensive, and honestly, I understand why. They know the jokes, they have heard every version of buy a Chevy, buy a Ford, enjoy the tow truck, and so on. But they also know how good the truck feels when it is right. That creates a strange loyalty. Ram owners are not usually blind to the problems. They just think the truck's strengths are worth dealing with. And there are real strengths. The cab storage is excellent. The ride quality is excellent. The Hemi has character. The older eco-diesel attracted people who wanted mileage. The newer Hurricane inline-6 engines brought huge power. The limited trims feel genuinely premium. The fourth-gen trucks built a cult following because they looked right, sounded right, and became affordable enough for regular people to modify. Ram's problem is not that the truck is secretly terrible. The problem is inconsistency. A great Ram owner experience can feel better than almost anything else in the class. A bad Ram owner experience can confirm every joke people make about the brand. That gap is what creates the reputation. Chevy's reputation is simple durability. Ford's reputation is volume, innovation, and loyalty. Ram's reputation is emotion. People love the way they drive, the way they sound, the way they look, and the way the cabin feels. But they worry about what happens after the warranty, after the first owner, after the air suspension gets old, after the Hemi starts ticking, after the electronics get weird. That is why Ram can win awards, impress reviewers, and still make buyers nervous. The truck is easy to love and easy to question at the same time. The newest chapter proves how much emotion matters. Ram removed the Hemi from the 2025 Ram 1500 lineup and pushed the Hurricane inline-6 instead. On paper, the Hurricane engines were stronger, the high-output version made serious power, and the standard output version gave the truck modern torque. But buyers were loud enough that Ram brought the Hemi back for 2026. That tells you everything. Ram did not just build a truck, it built an experience people get attached to. Sometimes that experience is comfortable, quiet, and premium. Sometimes it is a warning light, a tick under the hood, or an air suspension compressor running at the worst possible time. Another reason the reputation is hard to shake is that Ram's best qualities show up immediately, while the scary parts show up later. A buyer notices the ride quality in the first block. He notices the seat comfort before leaving the lot. He notices the big screen, storage, quiet cabin, and soft suspension right away. But the possible water leak, air suspension repair, broken manifold bolts, or electrical complaint might not appear until the warranty is gone or the truck is on its second owner. That timing matters. Ram wins the emotional test drive, but the reputation lives in year 5. A truck can be impressive on day 1 and still make used buyers nervous if the long-term stories are uneven. This is why Ram has such a split personality in the market. Reviewers love the refinement, owners love the comfort, and skeptics ask what it will cost to keep all that comfort working. The dealer lot experience also helps Ram. Put a buyer in a plain work truck from one brand, then put him in a nicer Ram with soft touch materials, a huge center screen, good storage, and a smooth ride, and the Ram feels like a smarter purchase even before price comes up. It feels like more vehicle. That feeling sells trucks. The problem is that feeling can overpower the inspection discipline buyers need when shopping used. That is where Ram buyers have to be honest. If you are buying new and keeping it under warranty, the premium feel may be worth it. If you are buying used, you need to shop like a mechanic, not like someone sitting in a comfortable chair. Check maintenance history, listen to cold starts, inspect for leaks, test every electronic feature, cycle the air suspension if equipped. And look underneath like the reputation is trying to warn you for free. So how did Ram build the nicest truck with the worst reputation? By chasing comfort, style, sound, and cabin quality harder than anyone else, while carrying decades of trust issues that never fully went away. A Ram 1500 can be the truck you recommend after one test drive and the truck you warn people to inspect harder than anything else on the lot. That contradiction is the brand. And somehow, it is exactly why people keep talking about it.